Hello, my name is Ash Alom, Head of Partnership Development for Bradford District and Craven Health and Care Partnership, and I work on leading on system development and organisational development across our place partnership.
My name is Therese Patten. I'm Chief Executive here at Bradford District Care Trust, which is a mental health and community trust covering Bradford and Craven districts.
Therese, it's a lovely opportunity to have this conversation with you, and I've got a few questions which we'll work through, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey and learning from your experiences. So I'll start off by asking you hopefully a really simple question. What attracted you to work with the NHS?
So I didn't start my career in the NHS. I started my career in overseas development. I went to university in London and then was really keen, this might come up later in the conversation, was keen to find people who looked like me. So I headed off to Africa, as you do in the 80s, and then stayed working in development for most of the 90s actually. Came back to the NHS in 99 because I wanted somewhere that had similar values to me. So based around sort of patient care, population health. I'd done work in Somalia and Pakistan and Zimbabwe, so really understood and saw actually in the work that I did the real impact you could have on people's lives through health, but actually it wasn't just health, it was water and sanitation and other things. So came into the NHS thinking that the NHS was a bit like that, a bit of the broad public health piece. It wasn't quite that broad, but certainly felt that it had similar values to where I wanted to spend my time and where I really felt that I could make a difference to people's lives, really.
How do you and your colleagues generate great ideas in your organisation and across the wider system? Part
of the attraction I had to this organisation when I was looking to apply for the job was the work we do here around innovation. We call it here our Care Trust way. And it's not just an improvement methodology. It's got three arms to it. It's about improvement, it's about innovation, and it's about coaching. And we do that across not just staff from all levels of the organisation. We involve patients, we involve service users, we involve partners, because we really think that you drive good ideas and innovation by talking to people who are in the seat of our care or our services, or talking to people who deliver our services, and get really frustrated by the things that they have to work around because our process and systems don't work. So we have a really strong way of working here. We have a really strong innovation ethic. We just this year, I'm really pleased, we had a innovation awards that we gave. We had a competition to staff in the organisation, and we had a set of awards for what frontline staff felt would be innovative and would make a difference to the way they provide services and care, and they were fantastic actually. I felt really proud of some of the ideas that people came up with.
How has the NHS supported you to grow and develop in your career to get to this point?
I've had a mixture of things. I've had very good mentors who've supported me in thinking about how I grow and develop, either that be in role or move into a different role. I've had coaches who have helped me think hard about specific issues, specific challenges, how I might approach that in a different way. And then I've also been very lucky that I've been on quite a lot of development programs run through the NHS. So Executive Stretch, I think it was the Top Leaders program. That shows how old I was. That was the original. And Executive Stretch was a Directorate Stretch program. And then most recently, the Aspiring Chief Executive program, which wasn't just a learning program. It was about really thinking deeply about how you could bring the best of yourself into the work that you did, and how we were, we taught servant leaders how we are privileged to be in a position of chief execs, but actually the more giving and vulnerable you are of yourself, the better you will do that job and the better you will be able to support, enable and develop your staff. Number one, this is a team game, and number two is my job is to make you able to be as best you can in the job that you do. And that's why it's a really privileged position to be in.
What roles have you had along the way?
You don't always have to go up in the NHS to grow and develop. You can take a sideways move, you can move to different organisations. So growth doesn't always have to be upwards, I suppose. And I've been very lucky in that I've sort of moved across and around organisations. I started in community services, I went into mental health, I went into tertiary specialist services, I went into acute services, and then I came back into mental health and community here. So, and I think that really rounded view of the NHS is really important, because I understand what happens in every organisation, so there isn't really a myth to it. But also I understand the real importance of partners and partnership working. So I've worked very closely with general practice all through my career, actually. Worked very closely with voluntary sector, social sector, and more laterally with local authorities. Because actually this is a team game, this is a partnership game. So I suppose my first director job was a commercial director, and then I quickly went into a chief operating officer role, and then I sort of did a bit of strategy and a bit of cooing, and then had deputy chief executive and director of strategy before I came here as chief executive.
Tell us a bit about a mentor who's particularly helped you during your career. How did they support your progression?
I've had one mentor who I worked with quite recently, actually, and we're still in contact. And I think what that mentor did for me was support me when I was in a role that was very challenging, actually. It's a difficult role. It was in a difficult organisation. It was a time of real pressure and real queries and worries about sustainability of that organisation. We were under a lot of scrutiny from regulators, and it felt quite a hard place to be. And I, at that time, was really questioning my commitment to the role, commitment to the organisation, commitment to the NHS, actually. And also there was some real confidence issues about was I able to do the role that I wanted to do. And the mentor, what's really useful about having a mentor is she had seen me when I had been really performing very well, was really confident in myself, was really positive. So when I felt not very positive and felt really very negative about my role and my contribution, she was able to say, well, actually, this is the same person who not that long ago was performing very well. So actually, the problem probably isn't with you. The problem is possibly with the environment that you're in. And actually, what we need to then work on is how you build that strength, resilience, get a bit of your passion and energy back, and really then focus on what you could do in the organisation to best effect.
So how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
The first few months in a role, possibly a bit longer, it's really about working out, the job and the people and the environment. So I probably spent the first year learning, listening, talking, understanding. The second year then I sort of branched out a little bit. I mean, obviously the NHS has been a changing beast in the last year, so trying to keep abreast of what's happening in our place in our system and stepping forward to take leadership roles. So I've taken on a number of leadership roles now that are challenging here, but I will learn from taking on that responsibility. And then as I come up to my sort of 2 years as a chief executive, looking to my third year, I'm really keen to think about what now is a new challenge. There's lots of challenges locally, but I think you get a real stretch from being involved in pieces of work or with people that you are not familiar with. You have to listen, you have to learn, you have to, try and be, try and analyse and try and critique.
What talents do you use in your current role?
I'm a bit of a gregarious people person, and that's very helpful. And I am a bit pacey in what I do, though I had some feedback about not being too pacey, because not everybody likes to work at the pace that I do. Something that struck me when I first arrived here, and that was in the middle of COVID, and it was difficult. That first winter of COVID was quite a hard place to be. And I was talking to a colleague on the Aspiring Chief Executive Programme, and we were talking about optimism, actually. And the most valuable thing that a leader can bring to an organisation is optimism. We have to be realistic, but we have to instill a sense of optimism into the organisation that, yes, it's difficult, yes, it's challenging, but we will move forward and we will continue to improve and grow so that we can provide the care to our patients and service users, which is the job that we do day in and day out.
What do you find the most rewarding and meaningful part of your current role?
Getting out and about, talking to staff and service users and patients, and I like doing that anyway. But I think probably because I was denied that for a lot of the first year and a half that when I was here, I do try to spend a lot of time out listening and learning, talking to teams, and I take a really varied approach. I do some of the back to the floor. I just sort of go on the wards and just spend time with people, and they get really anxious to say, oh, the GP6 is coming, and they go to spend the day with me. But you know what, after half an hour they forget who you are, and you're making teas and you're doing stuff, and actually they really start to talk to you about what it's like to work in the organisation. And then talking to patients and service users is really important, because they're the ones who can tell us what it's like at the sharp end of what we do. Does it work? Does it not work? You are in control of your diary on the whole. I've had more control of my calendar than any other role I've been in. So actually you can allocate time. You can diary time where you are out of the office and out with staff and patients. And I feel that's the bit that feels really privileged. You know, in a busy ops job in the NHS, you have very little control over how you spend your time, and I have lots of control now.
Who has inspired you along your journey and how?
People or patients who are resilient, or who keep coming back, or complainants. You know, as a chief exec here, the first thing I did was make sure that I see all of the complaints coming to the organisation, and complainants who've been round the houses, you know, with us being a little bit over bureaucratic and not resolving the issues. So I meet complainants, I offer them face to face, I meet them, I try and understand from their perspective what about my organisation is making it really difficult for them, and sometimes they're inspirational in terms of the journeys they've been on. I think some staff are inspirational, and I think it's service users and patients. There's obviously some leaders who I've learned from in terms of how they've led me, how they've managed me, how they've managed teams. But I'm not a believer that there's sort of one person who is the inspirational person. I think you can be inspired in the moment. You can be inspired in the moment by people that you see every day. And if you're open to listen and learn, then you can listen and learn from anywhere.
What advice can you share with people aspiring to be senior leaders within the NHS or wider health and care system?
Just trust yourself and have confidence. I think sometimes, particularly possibly people of colour, you're not always as confident as you could be, because you don't necessarily see people in the roles. If you're aspiring to a role and you can't see people in that role, it's difficult to think that you can see yourself in it. So have confidence, persevere, seek help and support. I've sought help and support at all levels in my career. You know, there's no stage where coaching and mentoring will help. There's no stage where more formal development programs will help. So be really open to learning, be really open to new challenges, reach out. If there's somebody you fancy, you look at and you think, oh, I fancy having them as my mentor, drop them an email. Don't feel that your career ladder has to be a rigid, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You can step outside, you can have different experiences, you can move sideways. But yeah, I think if you hold yourself rigidly to a career progression, it might work for you, but it might not. And if it doesn't, then you could feel that has impacted on your confidence.
So cast your mind back to the start of your career. What would you say to yourself if you were advising 2 things to yourself at the start of your career? What would you say on reflection now?
Persevere when you feel things are getting really difficult. I think I have on the whole. So persevere, but also I would say enjoy it. So I look back now at some of the work I did when I first joined the NHS, and it was fantastic, you know. And I think you balance how you enjoy the moment and the learning that you're in, and then how you push on. Don't be too hard on yourself, actually. I think the NHS sometimes is very much, you go from grade to grade to grade, and you have to be here this time, and you have to be here. And actually, you can progress in different ways and just enjoy the moment and the learning as you're on the journey.
How do you maintain your health and well-being at work?
I make sure that I have time away. I go to the gym, I walk the dog, I go on holiday, and I don't take my iPad with me, so there is time away from work. I have appointed a really strong deputy chief exec here, so when I'm not in, I'm not worried about not being in. You have to really rely on the team. I think to be able to not be in work in your head, you need to have absolute confidence in the team that you have in the organisation, that they will run it well when you're away, and that's absolutely the case. But I think it's been, particularly through COVID, I think COVID was difficult, and I think I lost some of that balance. But now I'm quite strict with myself.
What advice can you share with others to maintain their health and well-being and occupational balance?
So it's a bit around being fair to yourself and kind to yourself, and really taking that time away from work where you can do the stuff that you enjoy, whatever that might be. And when you're in work, really try and think about having that downtime where you can just connect with people in a way that we used to do before COVID. Having a cup of tea with somebody, a colleague, having a catch up. Today's A-level results day, how the kids got on, what's happening next. If you sit on Teams all day, you don't have the opportunity to talk about any of that. And that's really important. Knowing people, the people who work for you and with you, knowing what makes them tick, knowing what's important for them, is a really important part of leadership. And actually, I very often send people home if I think they've been here too long. Go home to your kids, go home to your dogs.
So in keeping with that theme and thinking about flexibility at work and the importance of that, what challenges and barriers have you faced along your journey, and how have you overcome those?
I think you learn and you grow, and if you get to a point where I did in one of my roles where you just felt you weren't well in yourself, you weren't contributing the way you want to, you were having real confidence issues about your ability to contribute, then you have to step away. You have to talk to people. You're surrounded by, good colleagues. I've been lucky. I'm surrounded by good colleagues. I have mentors. I have coaches, and actually, when you have a coach and a mentor, it's not just to talk about the work stuff. It's to talk about how you're struggling to balance. What might be happening at home. So I think it's about being open enough to have the conversations about what's not working and what is.
Brilliant. It's been an absolutely brilliant conversation and really inspiring to hear both your journey and some of the insights. So if you were to share some final words of wisdom for our health and care colleagues, what words of advice would you offer in terms of looking after themselves and progressing within the NHS?
If you look for roles that are interesting and will help you grow and will help you learn, and you are working with good, supportive colleagues who absolutely have your best interests at heart, and if you are able to share your vulnerabilities, we're not super people, we're not super women, I'm not a superwoman, I'm just an ordinary person, and if you are if you're in that environment, so interesting, challenging role, supported by good people, and able to manage that home work life, then you've got all the ingredients to succeed. And if you're struggling with any of those three, then reach out and get support. The NHS is full of people who are willing and able to support the people who are coming behind us, because we're not going to be here forever. And we have, when you've committed years and years to the NHS, it's really important to me that it's in good hands when I go off and do the other stuff. So seek help, ask for people to support you, but most of all, be in a role that you find interesting and challenging and fun, actually.
Brilliant. Thank you, Therese. Well, thank you for your time today. That's been absolutely fantastic. So
Ash, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for the opportunity.